So it makes a lot of sense to have a thorough knowledge of post-production if you want to be a director in a low-budget society or industry like ours.
Let's talk about your journey. You've done engineering, and then you were a graphical designer, and then you've moved into editing. And so when did directing or filmmaking actually begin? Hi.
That's my little boy. We were
Hey.
having an interview. I'm gonna wait outside. I'm coming.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
All right, cool. Okay. All right. I mean, so I studied engineering in school. I mean, I loved to play with equipment, and just stuff. But while in school, I fell in love with computers. I mean, I'd loved computers since I was in primary school. And those were like the early days of computers. So access was limited. But a lot of people didn't understand what computers could do. But I was very privileged very early to know what computers could do. So when I was, in the tertiary institution, I saw what I could do with computers. And the easiest thing you could do then was graphics, right? We did a lot of graphic work. And then I realized that you can actually make money out of doing these things. Like, you didn't have to do any physical work, but sit down and click a mouse, And then I found myself designing. So, I mean, I did a couple of graphic design work in school. And I remember a particular day, in those days, you couldn't afford to buy software, right? So we had a place called Computer Village, where there were all these pirated copies of software. And then, you would go there and then whatever it is you can find. And I was interested in all kinds of software. And then I found, a software, and then they said the software was for video editing. I was like, oh my God, that's cool. Do you mean I can make my own films? And then I saw another software, that was for 3D graphics and animation. And that was, I'd seen films like Toy Story, Bugs Life here, and I wanted to, I knew I wanted to be a different kind of storyteller. I mean, I'd always loved telling stories. I was in the drama, in school and all that. But I felt that I didn't want to do the difficult work of going out there, talking to actors and writing scripts. I want to create everything on the computer. So I spent a lot of time figuring stuff out on the computer. And when I left school around 2003, 2004, I decided this was probably what I was going to do for the rest of my life, And then it started out, with animation, post-production. I was doing a lot of work on music videos back then. And then there was a studio that I was working with part-time. And the owner of the studio, his name is Niyi. He had some really bold ideas then, He worked on a film then, I think it was called Smoke and Mirrors. It was the first green screen film then. And then I did a lot of that work with him. But he always noticed that, I was always bringing all kinds of crazy ideas whenever we were developing stories. And one day he looked at me and said, Niyi, do you know you might be a director one day? Maybe you should go read about it so you stop asking me all these questions. And I said, okay, fine. What do I need to read? And then he recommended a book. Then the author is Rabinger, I think, directing shot by shot. I forgot the art of directing. One of those books, and I consumed the entire book in less than a week. And I was like, okay, I'm ready. Let's do it. And then I started experimenting. I would shoot little stuff in the studio. I would shoot stuff. I would convince my church, to buy cameras so that we can film interesting gospel messages in drama. And of course, they all fell for it, and we did a lot of stuff then in church where we created all kinds of fun things. So I mastered the art of just putting stuff together on a computer. And it didn't take long before I decided I was going to make my own film. Of course, I was young. I was probably 25, and I said, you know what, I'm not going to make any kind of film. I'm going to put robots in it. It's going to be science fiction. It's going to be set in 2059. We're going to blow up the third mainland bridge, and everyone is going to go crazy. And that was what I did. Of course, he got the response that he did, which I'm sure you probably have read about. And but what it did then was that, it was a box office failure. But I think everybody started paying attention to this young guy called Niyi, who was interested in, thinking differently about film. That film has inspired a lot of some of the filmmakers you have working today. And I would get a lot of calls from, people working in Nollywood that, hey, Niyi, we're shooting this action sequence. Can you come and help us direct it? We're filming this really technical scene. Can you come and help us do that? And then I now started working with the core Nollywood. I had a lot of tutorship with Desmond Elliott. He had started directing then, and he needed someone to help him out with some of the more technical aspect, which I was really good at. And yeah, technically that's how, it developed. And then before I knew it, I was doing some more serious directing work for more people. And here we are now.
Amazing. So I guess it seems to be quite common where you have people who've worked more on, post-production turning out to be prolific directors. Is it because you have a better view of the final stages when at the earlier stages? So is that something that we can?
So if you're one of the things that has helped me succeed is that I'm able to do with less what a lot of people would have done with so much money. And that is because I kind of know what the end result will be. I know what to fix in post. And that allows me focus on the things that matter. It allows me spend more on story, spend more on the things that matter. So you'd see a lot of people that are done with their films, and then it spends a whole year in post-production hell because they've shot all the wrong things. They don't know what they're doing. The House of Secrets, this is going to shock you and your audience, is our shortest film ever in terms of from production to post. In fact, from pre-production to post, yes. So the idea was already in my head, but of course I already knew how we're going to do the black and white scenes. I knew how we're going to do a lot of the match cutting and all the transition. You see that a lot of what people are celebrating was a lot of the work in post, that we use in making the story connect and in helping the vision sell. But it is the film we were on set, I think in mid or late February, and the film was ready before June. So that is a thing, especially in societies like Nigeria, where you don't have budgets for reshoots, you don't have budgets. You don't have budgets at all. Okay, you want to ensure that you can think through everything. So it makes a lot of sense to have a thorough knowledge of post-production if you want to be a director in a low-budget society or industry like ours.
Interesting. This reminds me of my conversation with Walt Banger earlier this year, where he was again talking about one, how you have to be a lot more resourceful in Nollywood, and the second, how the time frames, how you aren't allowed that much time. How in Nollywood movies are made in like half the time in which movies are made in other parts of the world. So is budget the main reason for the time, the timing or the quick turnarounds as well, or are there other economic other reasons?
Well, it's mostly budget. You can throw around random things, but it all still comes down to budget. Now people are spending a lot more time filming because of the streamers. Because there is Amazon, there is Netflix, and then they can accommodate a bit of all that in the budget. But yeah, it is budget.
That's a wrap for this video, but do check out other videos where this chat continues.